I stood outside the Grand Pavilion Hotel, watching through the tall glass windows as my granddaughter Emma danced in her white wedding gown. She looked so beautiful, so happy, and I wasn't invited, not because I lived too far away, not because there wasn't enough room, but because I was too embarrassing, because my working-class accent, my simple clothes, my calloused seamstress hands didn't fit the aesthetic of her perfect, wealthy wedding. The granddaughter I'd raised, the child I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 nights while her mother worked double shifts. She'd looked me in the eye 3 months ago and told me I'd understand why it was better if I stayed home. How did I end up here, watching my own flesh and blood celebrate without me? And how did I find the strength to show them that dignity isn't measured by the price of your clothes? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe and stay with me to hear how this ends. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. You might see your own family in this story. My name is Dorothy Sullivan, though everyone who knows me calls me Dot. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, I thought I understood what family meant. I live in a small 2-bedroom house in Riverside, the working-class neighborhood where I raised my daughter Jessica 47 years ago. It's not fancy. The carpet is worn in places, and the kitchen cabinets are the same ones my late husband Frank installed in 1985. But it's paid for, and it's mine. And for most of my life, it was filled with love. I spent 38 years working as a seamstress at Delgado's Alterations downtown, and another 12 years picking up night shifts at Morrison's packaging factory. My hands tell the story of those years, calloused, with fingers that ache on cold mornings, tiny scars from needles and industrial machinery. Frank died 12 years ago from a heart attack. He was a good man, a construction worker who never made much but never complained. We didn't have money for luxuries, but we had each other. After he passed, I threw myself into 2 things, my work and my family. My daughter Jessica was everything to me. I'd divorced her father when she was just 2 years old. He was a drinker, and I knew staying would destroy us both. So I raised her alone, working double shifts, saving every penny I could. When Jessica graduated high school and said she wanted to be a nurse, I made it happen. I worked 70-hour weeks for 4 years to pay her tuition at State University. She lived at home to save money, and I'd come home from my factory shift at 2 in the morning to find her asleep over her anatomy textbooks. I'd cover her with a blanket and feel proud, so proud. Jessica became an RN when she was 23. A year later, she married David Chen, a software engineer. Smart man, good provider, but always a bit distant with me. They had Emma when Jessica was 24, and that's when my world truly began. My granddaughter. The moment I held that tiny baby in the hospital, with her scrunched-up little face and perfect tiny fingers, I fell completely in love. When Emma was 3, Jessica's nursing career took off. She was offered a position at City Medical Center with excellent pay, but brutal hours, 12-hour shifts, nights, weekends. David traveled constantly for work. They needed help with Emma, and I didn't hesitate. I retired early from the alterations shop, kept my factory job for the health insurance and income, and became Emma's primary caregiver. From age 3 to 10, I picked Emma up from preschool, then elementary school. I made her snacks, peanut butter crackers and apple slices. I helped with homework at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Jessica decades before. I read her stories, braided her hair, kissed her scraped knees, and tucked her into my guest bedroom when Jessica worked overnight shifts. Emma called me Graham, a name she'd invented herself. She'd run to me with her arms outstretched, and I'd scoop her up, breathing in the sunshine smell of her hair. We'd bake cookies together, my mother's oatmeal raisin recipe. She'd stand on a stool at my counter, carefully measuring flour with serious concentration. "Like this, Gram?" she'd ask, and I'd guide her small hands. Those were the happiest years of my life after losing Frank. When Emma turned 10, Jessica's hours stabilized. They didn't need me as much anymore. The daily pickups became weekly dinners, then monthly visits. I understood. Emma was growing up, involved in activities, making friends. But I cherished every moment we still had. I attended every school play, sitting in the auditorium in my best dress, cheering louder than anyone. I was at every birthday party, bringing homemade cakes because I couldn't afford the fancy bakery ones Jessica ordered. As Emma grew into a teenager, I started noticing small changes. She'd correct my grammar sometimes. "It's could have, Gram, not could of," she'd say gently. I'd laugh it off, but something in her tone felt different. When she was 16, she started asking if I could drop her off a block away from school instead of at the front entrance. "It's just easier, Gram," she'd explain. I told myself it was normal teenage embarrassment. By the time Emma went to college, a private university that Jessica and David paid for, our visits had dwindled to holidays. She studied marketing and business. She came home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, but she'd spend most of the time on her phone. I'd ask about her classes, her friends, her life, and she'd give short answers. "It's good, Gram. Everything's good." But her eyes would slide away from mine, toward the clock, like she was counting the minutes until she could leave. Still, I loved her. You don't stop loving your grandchild because they get busy. I told myself she was just focused on building her future, the way Jessica had been focused on nursing school. I was proud of her. She was going to have opportunities I never dreamed of. 2 years ago, Emma graduated college and took a job at a prestigious marketing firm downtown. Last year, on a cold November evening, Jessica called me with exciting news. "Mom, Emma's engaged," she said, her voice bright with happiness. "His name is Christopher Westbrook. He's wonderful. They met through work. The wedding is next June." I was overjoyed. My little Emma getting married. I immediately started thinking about what I could do to help. I didn't have much money, but I started setting aside $50 from each Social Security check, hiding it in an envelope in my dresser drawer. By the time June came around, I'd have something to give her. A real contribution. Maybe enough to pay for her flowers, or her cake, or something meaningful. Emma brought Christopher to meet the family at Christmas. He was tall, handsome, impeccably dressed in clothes I recognized as expensive. His handshake was firm but brief. He smiled politely when Jessica introduced me. "Christopher's family owns Westbrook Development," Jessica told me proudly. "They're very well known." I nodded, not really understanding what that meant, but happy that Emma had found someone who clearly cared about her. Throughout that Christmas dinner, I watched Emma with Christopher's arm around her. She laughed at his jokes, gazed at him adoringly. But when Christopher's phone rang and he stepped away to take a call, I saw Emma glance at me nervously. When I offered to show Christopher the photo albums from Emma's childhood, pictures of us baking together, her first day of school, Halloween costumes I'd sewn by hand, Emma quickly interrupted. "Maybe later, Gram. Christopher's really busy." The first real sign that something was wrong came in January. Jessica invited me to lunch at a nice restaurant downtown, the kind of place I'd never go on my own because a sandwich cost $15. She seemed nervous, stirring her iced tea obsessively. "Mom," she said finally, "I need to talk to you about the wedding." I smiled. "Of course, honey. I'm so excited. I've been saving up. I have almost $2,000 set aside for Emma. Maybe that can help with—" "Mom." Jessica's voice was strained. That's very generous. But I need to talk to you about something else." She took a breath. "Emma's wedding is going to be very formal. The Westbrooks they're a prominent family, very image-conscious. The wedding is at the Grand Pavilion. It's black tie. There will be nearly 300 guests." "That sounds beautiful," I said. "I'll need to get a nice dress. Maybe you can help me pick something out?" Jessica's face pinched. "Mom, that's what I wanted to talk about. Christopher's family. They're very particular about appearances. about how things look. Emma's been under a lot of stress trying to meet their expectations. Something cold settled in my stomach. What are you saying, Jessica? I'm saying that Emma is worried. She's worried about... Jessica couldn't meet my eyes. She's worried that you might feel uncomfortable at such a formal event. That maybe it would be too much, too overwhelming. I stared at my daughter. Are you saying Emma doesn't want me at her wedding? No, Jessica said quickly. No, of course not. She loves you. She's trying to make everything perfect. The Westbrooks have very high standards, and Emma's trying so hard to fit in with them. Christopher's mother, Claire, is very traditional, very focused on status and appearance. I raised Emma, I said quietly. I took care of her for 7 years while you built your career. I was there when she was sick, when she was scared, when she needed someone, and now I'm not good enough to watch her get married? That's not what I'm saying. But Jessica's eyes told me it was exactly what she was saying. Can you maybe think about it? Maybe you'd be more comfortable watching via live stream? Emma said they're going to have professional videography. You could watch from home, in comfort, without all the stress of... I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking. I need to go. Mom, please. I left the restaurant without finishing my $15 sandwich. I drove home in a daze, tears blurring my vision. When I got to my house, I sat in Frank's old recliner and cried until my chest ached. This couldn't be happening. There had to be a misunderstanding. That evening, I called Emma directly. She answered after 4 rings, her voice distracted. Hey, Gram. What's up? Emma, honey, your mother said something today that confused me. About the wedding. I just wanted to hear from you directly that you want me there. Because of course I'll be there. I wouldn't miss it for the world. There was a long pause. Too long. Gram, Emma said finally, her voice careful. Mom talked to you? She said something about me watching via live stream. But that's silly, right? I want to be there in person. I want to see you walk down the aisle. I've been saving money to help with Gram. Emma's tone shifted, became cooler, more distant, the voice she probably used with difficult clients at work. I appreciate everything you've done for me. I really do. But Mom's right. The wedding is going to be really formal and high pressure. Christopher's family is they're very particular about things, about how everything looks. My heart was hammering. What does that mean, Emma? She sighed. It means that this wedding has to be perfect. The Westbrooks are very prominent. There will be people there from Christopher's father's business, society people, everyone watching and judging. And I think it might be better if you stayed home. You'd be more comfortable there anyway. You've always said you don't like big fancy events. I said I don't like going to fancy events alone, I said, my voice breaking. But this is your wedding. You're my granddaughter. I'd go anywhere for you. I know, Gram. But honestly... Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you. Christopher's mother already asked me questions about our family, about our background. She noticed Mom's maiden name is Sullivan and asked if we were Irish working class. She said it in this tone, like it was something to overlook. I told her Mom's a nurse and Dad's in software. I told her you were retired. But I didn't tell her you were a seamstress and a factory worker. The words hit me like a physical blow. You're ashamed of me. I'm not ashamed, Emma insisted, but her voice was defensive. I need this to go smoothly. Christopher's family has certain expectations. The way people dress, the way they talk, their manners. And you, Gram, you're wonderful, but you're not used to that world. You say things like, "Yous guys," and "I seen." You eat with your elbows on the table. You wear clothes from Walmart. And that's fine. That's who you are. But at this wedding, with these people, I just think it's better if you sit this one out. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. My granddaughter, the child I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, was telling me I wasn't good enough. That my working class roots, the very same struggles that had paid for her mother's education and kept her safe and fed for years, were now an embarrassment. Emma, I whispered. I worked 2 jobs so your mother could become a nurse. Your mother worked as a nurse so you could go to college. Everything you have came from people like me, from working people who sacrificed everything. I know that, Gram, and I'm grateful. But this is my wedding day, and I need it to be perfect. I need Christopher's family to accept me. I can't have anything go wrong. Please try to understand. This is what's best. Best for who? I asked. Emma hesitated. I have to go. Christopher's calling. We'll send you the live stream link, okay? You'll have the best view of everything. It'll be like you're there. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my kitchen, staring at the phone in my hand. The same kitchen where I'd helped Emma with her 3rd-grade multiplication homework. The same table where we'd rolled out sugar cookie dough together every Christmas. The same counters where she'd stood on a stool, carefully pouring ingredients, asking me if she was doing it right. My friend Maggie found me there an hour later. She had a key to my house and had let herself in when I didn't answer her calls. She took one look at my face and knew something was devastatingly wrong. Honey, what happened? I told her everything. About Jessica's lunch, about Emma's phone call, about being excluded from the wedding because I was too embarrassing. Because my working-class accent and Walmart clothes didn't fit the aesthetic of Emma's new life. Maggie was furious. That ungrateful little... She caught herself. You practically raised that girl. You gave up your retirement, your time, your money. You worked yourself to the bone. And this is how she repays you? She said I'd be more comfortable at home, I said numbly. Watching on a computer screen. That's garbage and you know it, Maggie said. She grabbed my hands. Listen to me. You are not an embarrassment. You're a woman who worked hard your entire life. You're honest and kind and generous. If Emma Westbrook is ashamed of that, then she's the one with the problem, not you. But her words didn't stop the pain. Nothing could stop the pain that had settled in my chest like a stone. Over the next 3 months, I watched from a distance as the wedding preparations continued. Jessica would call occasionally with updates, her voice falsely cheerful, like she was trying to pretend everything was normal. Emma found the most beautiful dress, she'd tell me. The flowers are going to be all white roses and peonies. The cake is 5 tiers. I'd listen silently, imagining all the things I wouldn't see in person. Jessica never mentioned me attending. The exclusion had been decided. I was expected to accept it quietly. I stopped adding money to the envelope in my dresser. What was the point? Emma didn't want my contribution. She wanted the Westbrooks' money, the Westbrooks' approval, the Westbrooks' world. My $50 bills couldn't buy a place at that table. I saw exactly 3 posts on Emma's social media during this time. I wasn't very good with Facebook, but Maggie showed me how to look. The first post was a photo of Emma and Christopher at a fancy restaurant, Emma's engagement ring catching the light. Celebrating with my love. Cannot wait to marry you. The second was a photo of Emma, Jessica, and 3 of Emma's friends at a bridal shower. They were all laughing, champagne glasses raised. I wasn't invited to that either. The third was a photo of Emma in her wedding dress during what looked like a fitting. She looked radiant. The caption said, "Feeling so blessed to be marrying into the most wonderful family. Dreams coming true." There was no mention of me, no throwback photos of us together, no acknowledgement of the woman who'd raised her for 7 years. It was like I'd been erased. 2 weeks before the wedding, I ran into Rosa Martinez at church. Rosa owned Martinez Floral Design and had been a friend for 15 years. We'd met through the parish and had volunteered together at countless church events. After Mass, she pulled me aside, her face troubled. She said quietly, "I need to tell you something. I'm doing the flowers for a wedding at the Grand Pavilion next month. A girl named Emma Westbrook. Is that your Emma?" My stomach dropped. "Yes, that's my granddaughter." Rosa's expression softened with pity. "Oh, honey, I thought so." When I met with her to finalize the arrangements, she had a photo board showing the church setup. I saw a picture of you on her phone. You were in the background of an old family photo. I said, "Oh, is that your grandmother?" Will she be helping with family flowers? And Emma? Rosa shook her head. Emma looked uncomfortable and said, she won't be attending. It's a very exclusive event. That tone, Dot, like you weren't important enough to be there. I felt tears burning my eyes. She doesn't want me there, Rosa. She says I'm too embarrassing, that I don't fit with the Westbrooks image. Rosa looked horrified. That child, after everything you did for her. Dot, you raised her! Everyone at this church knows that. I know. My voice was barely a whisper. But she's ashamed of me now. Rosa squeezed my hand. I'm working that wedding. I'll be there all day setting up and managing the flowers. If you want to know what's happening, I can tell you. Or, she hesitated. If you want to see it yourself, the grand pavilion has those big glass windows facing the garden. You'd be able to watch from outside. Part of me recoiled from the idea. Why would I torture myself by watching from the outside like some kind of beggar? But another part of me, the part that had loved Emma since the moment she was born, needed to see her wedding day. Even if I couldn't be part of it, even if it broke my heart. I'll think about it, I told Rosa. If this story breaks your heart like it does mine, please hit that like button and tell me in the comments if you've ever felt betrayed by family. The week before the wedding, Jessica called me. I almost didn't answer, but some small hope made me pick up. Maybe Emma had changed her mind. Maybe she'd realized how cruel this was. Mom, Jessica said, I wanted to make sure you have the live stream link for the wedding. I'm texting it to you right now, so that was it. She was calling to confirm my exclusion. I got it, Jessica. I know this is hard, Jessica said quietly. But it's going to be a beautiful ceremony. You'll be able to see everything. Will I? I asked. Will I see Emma getting ready? Will I see her face when she walks down the aisle? Will I hear the vows, the toasts, the laughter? Or will I just see a camera angle that makes me feel like I'm there when I'm really alone in my house? Jessica was silent for a long moment. Mom, I wish things were different. You could make them different, I said. You're her mother. You could tell Emma this is wrong. You could tell her that family matters more than impressing some wealthy people who judge others based on their bank accounts. It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple, Jessica. But you won't do it because you're ashamed of me too, aren't you? You're a nurse. You married a software engineer. You live in a nice house in a nice neighborhood. And having a mother who worked in a factory and says, "Use guys," doesn't fit your image either? That's not fair. Jessica's voice cracked. I love you, Mom. I'll always be grateful for what you did for me. But not grateful enough to stand up for me, I said. Not grateful enough to tell your daughter that excluding the woman who raised her is wrong. Jessica started crying. I have to support Emma's decision. She's my daughter. And I'm your mother, I said. But I guess that doesn't matter as much. I hung up. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, remembering Emma as a little girl. The way she'd hold my hand crossing the street. The way she'd climb into my lap when she was scared during thunderstorms. The way she'd tell me she loved me, unprompted, just because she felt it. Where had that little girl gone? When had she learned to measure people's worth by their social class? When had love become less important than appearances? I got up at dawn on the day of the wedding. I put on my best dress, the cream-colored one I wore to church on Easter, and my simple pearl earrings. I did my hair carefully, pinning it half up the way I always did. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw an old woman, a woman with calloused hands and a working-class accent. A woman who didn't belong in the world of grand pavilions and five-tier cakes, but I also saw a woman who had loved deeply, who had sacrificed everything for her family, who had worked 2 jobs to give her daughter a future, who had raised a granddaughter with patience and tenderness. I was not an embarrassment. Emma might think so. The Westbrooks might think so. But I knew my worth. Frank had always told me, Dot, you're the strongest woman I know. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. I'd forgotten that. But standing there in my bedroom, looking at my reflection, I remembered. I drove to the Grand Pavilion. It was a massive building on the edge of the city, all glass and white stone, surrounded by manicured gardens. Expensive cars filled the parking lot, luxury sedans and SUVs that cost more than I'd earned in 5 years of factory work. I parked far in the back, in a corner spot where no one would notice my 20-year-old Honda. The wedding ceremony was at 4 o'clock. I arrived at 3:30, walking slowly around the building's perimeter. The gardens were beautiful, white roses everywhere, just like Jessica had said. String lights hung in the trees. A white tent covered rows and rows of chairs. I found a spot near the glass windows of the pavilion's ballroom. From there I could see inside without being seen. I stood behind a hedge of flowering bushes, hidden but watching. Guests started arriving, women in designer dresses and men in expensive tuxedos. They laughed and air-kissed and handed off their keys to valets. I recognized none of them. These weren't people from Emma's childhood. These weren't neighbors from Riverside or friends from her public elementary school. These were the Westbrooks people, the wealthy, the prominent, the exclusive. At 3:45, I saw Jessica arrive. She looked beautiful in a champagne-colored dress, her hair professionally styled. David walked beside her in a well-tailored tuxedo. They greeted guests, smiled, played the part of the happy parents of the bride. Jessica's eyes scanned the crowd occasionally, and once I thought she looked toward the windows, toward where I stood hidden. But she didn't see me. The ceremony began. I watched through the glass as guests took their seats. Classical music played. I could hear it faintly even outside. And then Emma appeared, my granddaughter. She was breathtaking in her white gown, her blonde hair styled in soft waves, a long veil trailing behind her. Christopher stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, waiting for her. Emma walked down the aisle on David's arm, smiling radiantly. I pressed my hand against the glass, tears streaming down my face. She was so beautiful, so happy. And I wasn't there. I wasn't in those chairs, watching her with pride. I wasn't in the family photos that would hang on her walls. I was outside, hidden behind bushes, watching the granddaughter I'd loved like my own daughter get married without me. The ceremony lasted 30 minutes. I watched as they exchanged vows, as Christopher lifted Emma's veil and kissed her, as guests applauded. I watched Jessica dab her eyes with a tissue. I watched David smile proudly. I watched Emma laugh and hold her new husband's hand, and then it was over. The guests moved into the ballroom for the reception. I stayed at the window, watching as they ate dinner at tables covered in white linens and elaborate floral centerpieces. I watched the first dance, Emma in Christopher's arms, spinning gracefully. I watched the father-daughter dance, David and Emma swaying to music I couldn't quite hear. I watched the toasts. Christopher's father stood up, a tall man with silver hair, speaking into a microphone. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw people laugh, saw them raise their glasses. Jessica stood and spoke next. Even from outside, I could see she was emotional. She gestured toward Emma, said something that made Emma wipe her eyes and mouth. "I love you, Mom." No one toasted me. No one mentioned the grandmother who'd raised Emma for 7 years. No one acknowledged the sacrifices that had built the foundation for this moment. I'd been erased. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for the sun to set, for the string lights to glow golden in the darkening garden, for the ballroom windows to become bright squares of warmth and celebration. Long enough for my feet to ache and my tears to dry on my cheeks. Finally, around 8 o'clock, I saw Rosa. She was moving between tables, checking the centerpieces, directing her staff. She glanced toward the windows and froze. Our eyes met through the glass. Her face filled with anguish and fury. She said something to one of her assistants, then walked quickly toward a side door. A moment later, Rosa was beside me in the garden. "Dot," she whispered, "what are you doing here?" "I had to see her," I said simply. "I had to watch my granddaughter get married, even if I couldn't be inside." Rosa looked like she might cry. This is wrong, so wrong. I've been listening to Emma and her friends all day. The things they've been saying. She shook her head. After dinner, I was refilling the water glasses at Emma's table. One of her bridesmaids asked Emma why there was no grandmother of the bride at the ceremony. Emma laughed. She actually laughed, Dot. And she said, "Oh, my grandmother is..." She's very old-fashioned, very working class. We didn't think she'd fit in here. Her friends laughed too. Like it was funny. The pain that shot through my chest was almost physical. Rosa grabbed my hand. I wanted to walk over and tell her exactly what I thought of her. But I didn't want to cause a scene and make things worse for you. It doesn't matter, I said tiredly. She's made her choice. It does matter, Rosa insisted. Dot, half the people in our church know what you did for Emma. Father Michael knows. Everyone knows you raised that girl. And they're going to hear about this. I'm going to make sure they hear about it. I shook my head. Rosa, please. I don't want drama. I just want to go home. But Rosa's eyes had that stubborn look I'd seen before. You're a good woman, Dot. Too good. You're letting them treat you like you don't matter. But you do matter, and someone needs to stand up for you, even if you won't stand up for yourself. I drove home in a fog. My house felt emptier than ever. I sat in Frank's recliner and pulled out an old photo album. Pictures of Emma as a baby, a toddler, a little girl. Emma in my lap, both of us laughing. Emma covered in flour from our baking sessions. Emma holding up a drawing she'd made at my kitchen table. I love you, Gram Gram, written in wobbly crayon letters. I cried until I had no tears left. The next morning, I woke to my phone ringing. It was Maggie. Dot, have you seen Facebook? No, I said. Why? Rosa posted something. About Emma's wedding. About you. Dot, you need to look. I fumbled with my phone, finding Facebook with Maggie's help. And there it was. A post from Rosa Martinez, shared publicly. Yesterday, I had the privilege of working a beautiful wedding at the Grand Pavilion. The flowers were stunning. The bride was lovely. The venue was elegant. But I also witnessed something that broke my heart. The bride's grandmother, a woman who raised her from age 3 to 10 while her parents worked. A woman who sacrificed her retirement and worked 2 jobs to help her family. A woman who has loved her granddaughter with everything she has, was excluded from the wedding. Not because she lived far away, not because she was ill, but because the bride was embarrassed by her working-class background. I watched this grandmother stand outside in the garden, hidden behind bushes, watching through the windows as her granddaughter got married without her. If you're reading this, Emma Westbrook, you should be ashamed. Your grandmother is worth 100 of your wealthy guests. She has more dignity, grace, and genuine character than anyone in that ballroom. I hope someday you realize what you've lost, and I hope it haunts you. The post had been shared 70 times already, and the comments were pouring in. This is heartbreaking. How could anyone treat their grandmother this way? I know Dorothy Sullivan. She's one of the kindest women I've ever met. This bride should be ashamed. Money can't buy class. This bride just proved that. Grandmother stood outside watching through windows, like some kind of beggar, while the family she sacrificed for celebrated inside. I'm sick, my phone started ringing. First Maggie, then other friends from church, then people I barely knew. Everyone had seen Rosa's post. Everyone was outraged. Father Michael called me at 10 a.m. Dorothy, he said gently, I just heard what happened at Emma's wedding. I'm so very sorry. This isn't right. This isn't how we treat the people who love us. I don't want this to become a big thing, I told him. I just want to move forward. Sometimes moving forward means acknowledging when we've been wronged, Father Michael said. You're allowed to be hurt, Dorothy. You're allowed to be angry, and you're allowed to expect better from your family. By noon, Rosa's post had been shared over 200 times. It had reached people beyond our church, beyond our neighborhood. Someone had sent it to a local news blog. By afternoon, it was everywhere. And then my phone rang. Jessica. Mom. Her voice was shaking. Mom, what have you done? I haven't done anything, Jessica. Rosa's post. It's everywhere. Emma's mortified. Christopher's family has seen it. His mother called this morning asking why Emma lied about not having a grandmother. Emma's friends are texting her asking if it's true. The comments are horrible. People are calling her cruel, ungrateful, a social climber. This is ruining her honeymoon. Something inside me snapped. Good, Jessica gasped. Mom, you heard me. Good. Maybe Emma needs to hear the truth. Maybe she needs to understand that actions have consequences. She treated me like garbage, Jessica. She excluded me from the most important day of her life because she was ashamed of where she came from. She laughed about it with her friends. She called me very working class like it was an insult. And you let her. You supported her decision. So yes, I'm glad she's facing consequences. You don't understand the pressure she was under. Christopher's family is very... I don't care about Christopher's family, I said, my voice rising. I care that my granddaughter, the child I raised with love and patience and sacrifice, looked at the woman who gave up years of her life for her and decided I wasn't good enough. I care that you, my own daughter, chose to support that cruelty instead of standing up for me. I worked 70-hour weeks to put you through nursing school, Jessica. I gave you everything I had. And when your daughter needed someone to exclude, someone to be ashamed of, you let her choose me. Jessica was crying. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I should have told Emma this was wrong. But I thought if I just went along with it, maybe it would be easier for everyone. Maybe you really would be more comfortable at home. That was never true, and you know it, I said. You told yourself that lie because it was easier than confronting your daughter's cruelty. What do you want me to do? Jessica asked desperately. Tell me how to fix this. I don't know if you can fix this, I said honestly. The damage is done. Emma made her choice. You made yours. And now I'm making mine. And what does that mean? It means I'm done making myself small for people who don't value me. It means I'm done accepting crumbs from a family I gave everything to. It means I'm going to focus on the people who actually want me in their lives. I hung up before she could respond. Over the next week, the story continued to spread. A local news site ran an article. Grandmother excluded from wedding for being too working class. Social media erupts. They'd pulled quotes from Rosa's post and some of the comments. They'd even tracked down a few people from our church who'd confirmed my story. Emma didn't call me. But I heard through Jessica that the fallout was severe. Christopher's mother, Claire, had been appalled when she learned the truth. She'd apparently prided herself on being a woman of character despite her wealth, and discovering that Emma had lied about her family and excluded her own grandmother had horrified her. According to Jessica, Claire had demanded a meeting with Emma and Christopher. She'd told them that character mattered more than appearances, and that Emma's treatment of me revealed a lack of integrity. Several of Emma's friends had distanced themselves after seeing the post. Even in her wealthy social circle, apparently, there were limits. Excluding a grandmother who'd raised you crossed a line. The wedding photos Emma had been so excited to post on social media, she never posted them. The backlash was too severe. Any post about the wedding was flooded with comments asking about the grandmother forced to watch from outside. 2 weeks after the wedding, Father Michael asked if he could visit me at home. I made coffee and we sat at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped Emma with homework all those years ago. Dorothy, Father Michael said, I've been thinking about your situation. And I've been praying about what to say to you. What you're experiencing is one of the deepest pains, rejection by someone you love. But I want you to know something. Your worth is not determined by Emma's perception of you. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone else's inability to see it. Tears filled my eyes. I keep asking myself what I did wrong. Where did I fail as a grandmother? How did I raise a child who could look at me and see only embarrassment? You didn't fail, Father Michael said firmly. Emma failed. And perhaps in her own way, Jessica failed too. They allowed the world's values, money, status, appearance, to override the values that actually matter. Love, loyalty, gratitude, respect. That's not your failure. That's theirs. But it hurts so much, I whispered. Of course it does, because you loved them with your whole heart. But Dorothy, this pain won't last forever. And someday Emma will understand what she's lost. She'll grow older, maybe have children of her own, and she'll realize that family isn't about appearances. It's about the people who show up, who sacrifice, who love you even when it's hard. And she'll realize she pushed away the one person who loved her unconditionally. Will it be too late by then? I asked. That's up to you, Father Michael said. Forgiveness is always possible, but it doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen. It doesn't mean letting them hurt you again. It means setting boundaries that protect your heart while leaving room for growth and change. His words gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks. Peace. Not happiness, not the absence of pain, but a quiet sense that I would survive this, that I was stronger than Emma's rejection. 3 weeks after the wedding, I received an email. It was from Claire Westbrook. Dear Mrs. Sullivan, it began. I hope you'll forgive this intrusion. I obtained your email address from your daughter Jessica, who I contacted directly. I feel I must reach out to you personally to express my profound apologies for what occurred at my son's wedding to your granddaughter. Emma, I was not aware of your exclusion from the wedding until after the ceremony, when the social media posts began circulating. I was horrified to learn that Emma had lied to me about her family situation and, more importantly, that she had treated you with such callous disregard. I have raised my sons to value character, integrity, and family above all else. When I learned what Emma had done, excluding the grandmother who raised her because she was embarrassed by your working-class background, I was devastated. This is not what the Westbrook family stands for. We may have financial resources, but we have never, and will never, believe that wealth determines a person's worth. I have spoken at length with Emma and Christopher. I have made it clear that Emma's behavior was unacceptable and that she needs to make amends. Whether she will do so is up to her, but I wanted you to know that you have my respect and my admiration. A woman who works multiple jobs to support her family, who sacrifices her own comfort to raise her granddaughter, who loves selflessly despite receiving cruelty in return. That is true nobility. That is true class. If you are ever willing to meet with me, I would be honored. I would like to apologize in person for any role my family's presence may have played in making Emma feel she needed to hide her roots. And I would like to get to know the woman who clearly has more grace and dignity than most people I encounter in my so-called high society circles. With deep respect, Claire Westbrook. I read the email 3 times. Then I called Maggie and read it to her. Well, Maggie said, at least someone in that family has sense. I wrote back, Dear Mrs. Westbrook, thank you for your kind words. I appreciate your taking the time to reach out. I would be willing to meet with you. Dorothy Sullivan. We met for coffee 3 days later at a quiet cafe downtown. Claire Westbrook arrived exactly on time, elegant in a navy blazer and simple jewelry. She wasn't what I expected. Her handshake was warm, and when she sat across from me, her eyes were genuinely kind. Mrs. Sullivan, she said, thank you for meeting with me. I know this must be difficult. Please call me Dorothy. Or Dot, she smiled. Then you must call me Claire. Dorothy, I want you to know that what Emma did goes against everything I believe in. My own grandmother was a Polish immigrant who cleaned houses to support her family. My grandfather worked in a steel mill. I grew up hearing stories about their sacrifices, their struggles, their pride in honest work. When I married into the Westbrook family, yes, I married into wealth, I wasn't born into it. I promised myself I would never forget where I came from. I stared at her. Emma told me your family was very particular about appearances, about status. Claire's expression darkened. My family values integrity and character. We do host formal events, yes, and we have certain social obligations. But we have never ever judged people based on their bank accounts or their accents or where they bought their clothes. If Emma believed we would judge you for being working class, she fundamentally misunderstood who we are, or— Claire paused. Or she projected her own insecurities onto us. She was ashamed of me, I said quietly. She said I might embarrass her. Then she's a fool, Claire said bluntly. Dorothy, in the 3 months since Emma and Christopher's engagement, I've gotten to know your granddaughter. She's smart, she's ambitious, she's charming. But she's also deeply insecure. She's desperate to prove she belongs in our world. She name drops. She talks constantly about luxury brands. She tries too hard to impress. I've watched her at family dinners, and she's always performing. Always worried about saying the wrong thing, using the wrong fork, wearing the wrong outfit. That's not how I raised her, I said. When she was little, I taught her that kindness mattered more than anything. That family was everything. That honest work was something to be proud of. I believe you, Claire said. But somewhere along the way, Emma lost sight of those lessons. Maybe it was college being around wealthy classmates. Maybe it was the pressure of dating Christopher, feeling like she had to measure up. Whatever the reason, she made a terrible choice. And now she's facing the consequences. How is she? I asked, despite everything. Claire sighed. Honestly, miserable. The social media backlash has been brutal. Several of her friends have distanced themselves. Christopher has been disappointed in her. He actually suggested they postpone the honeymoon until she makes things right with you. And I've made it very clear that until she takes accountability for what she did, she won't be welcomed at certain family events. My mother-in-law, Christopher's grandmother, was particularly appalled. She wants to meet you, by the way. She said any woman who raises a child while working 2 jobs deserves respect, not exclusion. Tears burned in my eyes. I don't want to cause problems in Emma's marriage. You didn't cause this, Claire said firmly. Emma did. And Dorothy, can I be honest with you? Emma needs to face consequences. Not because I want her to suffer, but because she needs to learn that actions have repercussions. That you can't treat people cruelly and expect no fallout. If Christopher and I let this slide, if we pretend it's not a big deal, we're teaching her that she can discard people when they're inconvenient. That's not the kind of woman I want in my family. We talked for 2 hours. Claire told me stories about her own grandmother, about the sacrifices immigrants make, about the importance of remembering where you come from. She asked about my life, my work, my late husband Frank. She looked at photos on my phone of Emma as a little girl, and I saw her expression soften. She was lucky to have you, Claire said. I hope someday she realizes that. When we parted, Claire hugged me. Please stay in touch, she said. Regardless of what happens with Emma, I would like to know you. I drove home feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Valued, seen, respected. But I still didn't hear from Emma. 4 weeks after the wedding, Jessica came to my house. I saw her car pull up and considered not answering the door. But I let her in. She looked terrible, tired, older than her 47 years, her eyes red from crying. Mom, she said, I need to talk to you. Really talk to you. We sat at the kitchen table. Jessica stared at her hands for a long moment before speaking. I was wrong, she said finally. I was so wrong. I should have stood up for you. I should have told Emma that excluding you was unacceptable. I should have refused to go to that wedding if you weren't invited. But I didn't. I was a coward. I said nothing. I needed to hear this. I think— Jessica's voice broke. I think I was ashamed too. Not of you exactly, but of where we came from. When I became a nurse, when I married David, when we moved to a nicer neighborhood, I started feeling like I'd left that working class life behind. And having you there, with your factory stories and your Walmart clothes and your grammar mistakes, it reminded me of everything I was trying to move past. The words hurt, but I appreciated her honesty. But watching what happened these past few weeks, Jessica continued, watching you be humiliated, watching the community rally around you, seeing Claire Westbrook show you more respect than your own daughter did. Mom, I was so ashamed of myself. You gave me everything. You sacrificed your entire life so I could have opportunities, and I repaid you by supporting Emma's cruelty. Why didn't you say something sooner? I asked. At that lunch, when you first told me Emma didn't want me at the wedding, why didn't you tell her that was wrong? Jessica wiped her eyes. Because I was afraid of conflict. Afraid Emma would be angry with me. Afraid of ruining her perfect wedding. I prioritized keeping the peace over protecting you. And that's unforgivable. Yes, I said. It is. Jessica flinched but nodded. I know. And I don't expect you to forgive me right away. But Mom, I'm gonna do better. I've already told Emma that what she did was wrong. That she needs to apologize to you face to face, not through text or email. That until she makes real amends, our relationship will be strained. How did she take that? I asked. Not well, Jessica admitted. She said I was taking your side over hers. She said I don't understand the pressure she's under. But I told her that's no excuse. That you don't get to treat people like garbage just because you're stressed. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small flicker of hope. Not that everything would be fixed, but that maybe, eventually, healing was possible. Thank you for saying that to her, I said quietly. But Jessica, I need you to understand something. I can't go back to the way things were. I can't pretend this didn't happen. Emma broke my heart, and you let her. If we're going to rebuild our relationship, it has to be different. It has to be based on mutual respect, not just obligation. I understand, Jessica said. And I'll do whatever it takes, Mom, whatever you need. We didn't hug when she left, but we were talking. That was something. 6 weeks after the wedding, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Emma stood there. She looked different. Smaller somehow. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She'd been crying. Graham, she said, and her voice cracked on the name she hadn't used in years. Can I please come in? I stepped aside. She walked into my living room, the same living room where she'd watched cartoons as a little girl, and stood there looking lost. I don't know where to start, she said finally. The beginning is usually good, I said. Keeping my voice neutral, Emma took a shaky breath. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What I did to you was unforgivable. I excluded you from my wedding because I was ashamed. Ashamed of being working class, ashamed of my roots, ashamed of anything that didn't fit the perfect image I was trying to create. And I convinced myself it was okay because you'd be more comfortable at home. But that was a lie. The truth is, I didn't want you there because I thought you'd make me look bad in front of the Westbrooks. She was openly crying now. And the worst part is, I laughed about it. When my friend asked where you were, I laughed and called you very working class, like it was something shameful. I made fun of the woman who raised me, the woman who loved me unconditionally, the woman who gave up her retirement to take care of me. I felt my own tears building but held them back. I needed to hear everything. After Rosa's post went viral, I was so angry, Emma continued. I felt like you'd humiliated me, ruined my wedding, made me look bad. But then Claire sat me down. She told me about her own grandmother, about how she cleaned houses and sacrificed everything for her family. She told me that real class has nothing to do with money. That character is what matters. And she said if I couldn't see your worth, then I didn't deserve to be part of their family. Emma sank onto my couch, the same couch where we'd read bedtime stories together. Christopher was disappointed in me too. He said he didn't recognize the person I'd become, that the woman he fell in love with was kind and genuine, but the woman who excluded her own grandmother was someone else entirely. We almost didn't go on our honeymoon. He said he couldn't celebrate a marriage that started with such cruelty. Did you go? I asked. We did, eventually. But it wasn't the magical trip I'd imagined. Every time I posted a photo, the comments were about you. Where's the grandmother you excluded? Must be nice enjoying a honeymoon paid for by the woman you betrayed. I ended up deleting my entire Instagram account. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt sad. But the worst moment, Emma said, was when Christopher's grandmother, Claire's mother-in-law, Eleanor, came to visit us. She's 91 years old, Gram. She walks with a cane. She has a thick accent from growing up in Ireland, and she's one of the most dignified women I've ever met. She sat me down and said, "Young lady, I heard what you did to your grandmother. If my grandson had excluded me from his wedding because I wasn't fancy enough, I would have disowned him. You should be ashamed." Emma looked at me with swollen eyes. And she was right. I am ashamed. I'm so ashamed I can barely look at myself in the mirror. I thought marrying Christopher would make me someone important, someone worthy. But all it did was show me that I'd lost sight of who I really was, of the values you taught me. What values did I teach you, Emma? I asked quietly. That family comes first. That honest work is honorable. That kindness matters more than appearances. That love isn't conditional on someone fitting your image. Emma's voice broke completely, and I forgot all of it. I threw it away because I was so desperate to be someone I'm not. We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, rain pattered against the windows. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Emma finally said. "I know what I did was unforgivable, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. And I need you to know that I remember everything you did for me. Every afternoon you picked me up from school. Every homework session at this table. Every batch of cookies we baked together. Every time you told me you loved me. I remember all of it. And I threw it back in your face. Why?" I asked. "Why did you do it, Emma? What changed?" Emma wiped her eyes. I think somewhere in college, I started believing that where I came from wasn't good enough. I saw classmates with family money, with vacation homes, with designer everything, and I felt less than, like I had to prove I belonged. When I met Christopher, that feeling got worse. His family is so wealthy, so established. I felt like an imposter. So I tried to erase anything that reminded people I came from Riverside, that my grandmother worked in a factory, that we were working class. And now? I asked. Now I realize that I'm the one who wasn't good enough, Emma said. Not because of where I came from, but because of who I became. Claire told me something that really stuck with me. She said, "Emma, the Westbrooks respect people who know where they came from and honor their roots. We don't respect people who pretend to be something they're not." And she's right. I was so busy pretending to be high society that I forgot the people who actually made me who I am. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I want you to have this." I opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $3,000, the exact amount I'd saved for her wedding gift before I stopped. "I don't want this," Emma said. "I don't deserve it. You saved that money through sacrifice, and I repaid you with cruelty. Please take it back. Use it for yourself. You've given me enough." I looked at the check, then at Emma. She looked like the little girl I'd raised, vulnerable, scared, seeking forgiveness. But she also looked like a woman who was finally understanding the weight of her actions. "Emma," I said carefully, "I appreciate your apology. I really do, and I can see that you're genuinely remorseful. But you need to understand something. An apology doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't undo the fact that I stood outside your wedding, hidden in the garden, watching through glass while you celebrated inside. It doesn't change the fact that you laughed about me with your friends, that you called me an embarrassment." Emma nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. I know I can't take it back. But Gram, please, can you ever forgive me? Not now, I understand. But someday?" I thought about Father Michael's words, about forgiveness being possible without forgetting, about setting boundaries while leaving room for growth. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now I'm still hurt, still angry, still processing the fact that the granddaughter I loved more than anything looked at me and saw shame instead of the woman who raised her. But I paused. But I'm not closing the door completely. If you're serious about making amends, if you're willing to do the work to rebuild trust, then maybe, someday, we can try. Emma's face crumpled with relief. I'll do anything you need. I'll go to therapy to figure out why I became so obsessed with appearances. I'll volunteer at church with you. I'll show up every week and prove that I'm not that person anymore. Whatever it takes, Gram. Please. Here's what I need, I said. I need time. I need space to heal. I need you to understand that forgiveness is a process, not an event. And I need you to prove, through your actions over months and years, that you've actually changed. That this isn't just temporary guilt. I understand, Emma said. And I'll wait. However long it takes. Before she left, she hugged me. I let her, but I didn't hug back with the same warmth I once had. The trust was broken. It would take time to rebuild. After she left, I called Maggie. Emma came to apologize. And? Maggie asked, and I told her the truth. That I'm not ready to forgive yet. That she needs to prove she's changed. Good, Maggie said firmly. Don't let her off easy, Dot. She needs to earn her way back into your life. Over the following months, Emma did try. She started coming to Sunday Mass, sitting in the pew beside me. She volunteered at the church's food pantry, working alongside me to sort donations and serve meals. She came to my house every other week for coffee, and slowly we started talking again. Not about the wedding at first, just small things, her job, Christopher's work, my garden, the weather. Christopher came with her once. He shook my hand and said, Mrs. Sullivan, I'm so sorry for what happened. Emma told me the whole story, and I want you to know that I had no idea she was excluding you. If I'd known, I would have insisted you be there. I believed him. He seemed genuinely kind, and I could see why Emma had fallen for him. Claire and I continued meeting for coffee every few weeks. She became surprisingly a friend. She introduced me to her mother-in-law, Eleanor, the 91-year-old Irish immigrant who'd scolded Emma. Eleanor and I bonded immediately over stories of sacrifice and hard work. My dear, Eleanor told me over tea one afternoon, you raised your granddaughter with love. What she did with that love was her choice, not your failure. But I think she's learning. Slowly, but she's learning. Jessica and I also began rebuilding our relationship. It was harder with her because the betrayal cut deeper. She was my daughter, and she should have protected me. But she continued showing up, continued apologizing, continued proving through her actions that she wanted to make amends. 6 months after the wedding, Emma asked if she could talk to me about something important. We sat in my living room, and she took a deep breath. Graham, Christopher, and I have been talking about the future, about starting a family someday, and I realized something. If I have a daughter, I want her to know her great-grandmother. I want her to hear the stories about how you worked 2 jobs to support your family. I want her to learn to bake your oatmeal raisin cookies. I want her to understand that real strength comes from sacrifice and love, not from money or status. She pulled out her phone and showed me something. It was her new Instagram account. She'd reactivated it, but it was different now. Among the wedding photos she'd finally posted months later was one with a long caption. I need to address something that happened at my wedding. My grandmother, the woman who raised me from age 3 to 10, who sacrificed everything for our family, was excluded from the ceremony because I was ashamed of my working-class roots. I convinced myself she'd be more comfortable at home, but the truth is, I was embarrassed by her. This is the most shameful thing I've ever done, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. My Gram worked as a seamstress and in a factory to support her family. She put my mother through nursing school. She gave up her retirement to care for me, and I repaid her by treating her like an embarrassment. I'm sharing this not for sympathy, but for accountability. I was wrong. I hurt the woman who loved me most, and I'm spending every day trying to become worthy of her forgiveness. To anyone reading this, honor your elders. Respect the people who sacrificed for you. Don't let society's obsession with wealth and status make you forget where you came from. I learned this lesson the hardest way possible. The post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments. Most were supportive, praising Emma for her honesty and accountability. "I wanted to post this months ago," Emma said. "But my therapist suggested I wait until I'd actually done the work to change, not just said the words. I've been in therapy for 5 months now, working on my insecurity and my obsession with appearances. And I'm getting better. I'm not perfect. I still struggle sometimes, but I'm trying." I looked at my granddaughter, really looked at her, and saw someone different from the woman who'd excluded me. Someone humbled, someone growing. "Thank you for sharing that," I said. "That took courage." "It's the least I could do," Emma said. "Before you go, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if this story touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories of strength and redemption. Have you ever experienced family betrayal or seen an elder mistreated? Share your thoughts in the comments. Today, a year after that devastating wedding, my relationship with Emma is still healing. We're not back to where we were. I don't know if we ever will be. The wound was too deep. But we're building something new. Something based on honesty instead of obligation. On mutual respect instead of blind love. Emma has kept her promises. She comes to church every Sunday. She volunteers at the food pantry. She calls me weekly. She stopped caring so much about designer labels and Instagram aesthetics. She started talking about her working-class roots with pride instead of shame. Christopher's family has fully embraced me. I've been invited to Sunday dinners at the Westbrook estate, where Eleanor and I swap stories while Claire smiles and says we're trouble together. Jessica and I have also found our way back to each other. She's been more intentional about our relationship, more honest about her own insecurities. She stopped apologizing and started simply being present. That's what I needed most. I still have the $3,000 Emma tried to return. I haven't spent it. I'm thinking about setting it aside for her future children, my great-grandchildren, with a note explaining that their great-grandmother earned this money through hard work and sacrifice, and that they should never be ashamed of where they come from. The community support I received during that awful time changed something in me. I realized that I'd been making myself small for years, apologizing for my accent, for my simple clothes, for my working-class background. I'd internalized the idea that I was somehow less than people with more money or education. But Rose's post, Father Michael's words, Claire's friendship, and the outpouring of support from people who knew my story showed me the truth. My worth was never determined by Emma's perception of me. I've started volunteering more at church, helping other elderly people who feel forgotten or undervalued. I've shared my story with several women my age who've experienced similar rejection from their families. We've formed a sort of informal support group, the Grandmothers Club, Maggie jokingly calls it. We meet every Tuesday for coffee and remind each other that we matter, that our sacrifices weren't wasted, that our love was real even if it wasn't properly valued. I've also started setting boundaries I never had before. When Jessica suggested I might want to update my wardrobe for a family event, I told her plainly, I dress the way I'm comfortable. If that's not fancy enough for your friends, they don't have to invite me. She backed down immediately and apologized. That felt powerful. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean returning to the way things were. It means releasing the poison of bitterness while still protecting yourself from future harm. I'm working toward forgiving Emma, truly forgiving her, not just saying the words. But I'm also maintaining boundaries that keep my heart safe. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes I see a grandmother and granddaughter together in the grocery store, laughing easily, and I feel the sting of what I lost. The easy, unconditional love Emma and I once shared is gone. What we have now is more complicated, more fragile, built on a foundation that cracked and had to be carefully repaired. But I've also learned that I'm stronger than I knew. That standing up for myself, even when it meant being alone for a while, was worth it. That dignity matters. That self-respect matters. That I deserve to be valued, not hidden. Looking back now, I understand that Emma's rejection, as painful as it was, taught me something crucial. You can't make someone see your worth if they're determined to look at you through the lens of shame. But you can decide that their perception doesn't define you. You can choose to surround yourself with people who recognize your value without being convinced of it. Claire Westbrook, a woman from the high society world Emma so desperately wanted to impress, saw my worth immediately. She didn't need to be convinced. She didn't judge me based on my clothes or my accent or my social security income. She looked at my character, my sacrifices, my love for my family, and she respected me. That taught me more about real class than any fancy wedding ever could. If I could tell my younger self anything, the woman working 70-hour weeks to put Jessica through nursing school, the grandmother caring for toddler Emma while exhausted from factory shifts, I would say this: your sacrifices matter. Your love is valuable, and someday you'll need to remember that even if the people you sacrificed for forget it. I would tell her to be proud of her calloused hands, her working-class accent, her Walmart clothes. Because those things represent survival, perseverance, and unconditional love. And that's worth more than any designer dress or high society wedding. I've also learned that karma is real, but not always in the dramatic ways we expect. Emma's karma wasn't public humiliation or a failed marriage. It was the slow, painful realization that she'd betrayed someone who loved her unconditionally. It was the look in Christopher's eyes when he understood who she'd become. It was Claire's disappointment. It was the loss of friendships and respect. But most of all, it was having to live with herself, knowing what she'd done, and maybe that's the most powerful consequence of all. Not external punishment, but the internal reckoning when you realize you've become someone you're ashamed of. Emma is working to become someone different now. Someone better. I see it in the way she talks about her job. Less about status and image, more about meaningful work. I see it in the way she treats service workers with respect and kindness. I see it in the way she started, talking about when we have kids, making it clear that she wants to raise them with the values I taught her, values she temporarily lost but is trying to reclaim. Will we ever be as close as we once were? I don't know. The little girl who called me Gram and held my hand crossing the street is gone. The teenager who asked me to drop her off a block from school foreshadowed the woman who excluded me from her wedding. But the woman Emma is becoming now, humbled, accountable, working on herself, that's someone I can potentially build a relationship with. A different relationship, but maybe a more honest one. My friends ask me sometimes if I regret Rosa posting on social media, if I wish the whole thing had stayed private. And honestly, no. As painful as it was to have my humiliation exposed publicly, that exposure brought accountability. It forced Emma to face consequences. It showed me that I had a community who valued me. It brought Claire into my life. It gave me the strength to demand better treatment. If Rosa hadn't posted, if the story had stayed hidden, Emma would have gone on with her life believing she could treat people as disposable when they didn't fit her image. Jessica would have continued prioritizing keeping the peace over standing up for what's right. And I would have spent the rest of my life accepting crumbs of affection from people who saw me as an embarrassment. The exposure hurt. But it also healed. It also liberated. Father Michael said something to me recently that really resonated. He said, "Dorothy, your story has helped so many people in our parish. I've had 3 different families come to me saying they were inspired by your courage to set boundaries with adult children who were mistreating them. You showed them that loving someone doesn't mean accepting abuse. That's a powerful lesson. I never wanted to be an example. I just wanted to be valued by my family. But if my pain can help someone else find the courage to stand up for themselves, then maybe it wasn't entirely in vain. I still live in my small house in Riverside. Still drive my 20-year-old Honda. Still wear my Walmart clothes because they're comfortable and practical. But I wear them differently now, not with hidden shame, but with quiet pride. These clothes represent a woman who survived, who worked hard, who loved deeply, who refused to be diminished. And that woman, calloused hands, working-class accent and all, is someone worth respecting. Have you ever had to choose between family and your own dignity? Have you ever been made to feel ashamed of where you came from? Have you ever loved someone who couldn't see your value until it was almost too late? I hope my story reminds you that you're not alone, that your worth isn't determined by how others see you, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a boundary and demand better. And if you're ever tempted to hide your roots, to be ashamed of the people who sacrificed for you, to prioritize image over integrity, remember the grandmother standing outside the wedding, watching through glass. Remember the pain of rejection. Remember that the people you're trying to impress aren't worth losing yourself for. True nobility isn't about wealth or status or designer wedding gowns. It's about character. It's about how you treat people when no one important is watching. It's about honoring the sacrifices others made for you. It's about choosing love over appearances, integrity over image, truth over performance. Emma forgot that for a while, but she's remembering now. And maybe, in time, what was broken can be rebuilt into something even stronger. Not the same, never the same, but something new, something honest, something real. That's what I'm hoping for. Not a fairy tale reconciliation where everything goes back to the way it was, but a genuine relationship where we both show up honestly, where respect flows both ways, where my worth is never questioned again. I don't know if we'll get there, but I'm willing to try, because despite everything, I still love my granddaughter. I just love myself now too, and that, I've learned, makes all the difference. The stories shared on this channel are entirely fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. We believe in honoring our elders and treating all family members with love and respect. These stories are meant to inspire reflection on family relationships and the importance of compassion. Any resemblance to real people, events, or families is purely coincidental and unintentional. These narratives carry no specific cultural, political, or religious implications.